Welcome to Bits and Pieces Quilting. Today we're going to see if we can get some bits and pieces out of these men's dress shirts. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Michelle. How many of you also do mending for your family as well as quilting? For me, my sewing room has a small pile of all the mending that needs to be done. And once that pile gets big enough, I just bite the bullet and try and work my way through it. So I have a dress shirt here from my husband, from Jason, and the arm, the elbow, has been repaired, I don't know if you can see that, twice. He had a little rip in the elbow. He asked me if I could fix it. I did an okay job trying to mend it. And then it tore again along my repair. And I thought, ugh, another repair. Do I really want him going into the office with this hole in his elbow? Maybe it's time just to part with the shirt. But then I stumbled on Cathy Martin and Cat Bird Quilts. How many of you have watched her videos? I'll put a link in the description down below and you should definitely go check those out. She makes quilts from men's dress shirts. And I stumbled on her videos and thought, oh my gosh, let me go through my mending pile and see what I could turn into fabric for quilts and then not have to do the mending. So this was the first one, the beige shirt. Subsequently, I've come up with this blue plaid, and it's got a hole down here along the waistline at the front, as well as this beautiful shirt, which is maybe a little bit of a shame because it is a beautiful shirt, with a hole in the elbow very similar to the beige one. I'm not sure what Jason's doing to get holes in the elbows like this, but instead of trying to mend these, I am going to take inspiration from Cathy, cut these up, and see what kind of fabric I can get to use in future quilt projects. Stick with me. Let's see how it goes. I started, as Cathy recommends, by cutting off all of the buttons. I didn't quite realize how many buttons were in a man's dress shirt. In this instance, I've got 12 large ones and 5 little ones. So I will add those to my button collection and, I don't know, maybe make some fun craft. If you've got any great ideas of what to do with all of these buttons, I'd love to hear from you. Leave us a comment down below. So I'm going to move the buttons out of the way and dive in to this first really beautiful shirt. Never done anything quite like this, and starting to cut this up feels, I don't know, a little different. So make sure that you watch all of Cathy's video series on how she cuts up the shirt. She walks you through each step and explains her process really clearly, and I highly recommend you check out those videos. I'm just going along the way Cathy recommends. I think sharp scissors are a good thing. You'll notice how easy it is in some instances here to cut straight through the shirt. I am a little, I don't know, concerned? Is concerned the right word? I'm a little interested to see how the different weights of the shirts, so this plaid, for example, is 100% cotton, but it feels completely different than this one. I don't know if they're just woven differently, they're different quality. I'm not really sure what makes the difference, but I'm interested to better understand how the different weights of the dress shirts will have an impact in any final product. I'm also really interested to see if Cathy makes quilts from just dress shirts, or if she works the dress shirt fabric into projects with other quilt fabric, with other sources of fabric. So I'm going to diverge a little bit here from the way that Cathy does things and just cut that sleeve right off. She ends up with a really cute set of seams and sleeves. That's really funny. You have to check out her video to see that. Although maybe I understand why she did that now, because this is harder than I thought it was going to be. I think that there's going to be a lot of fabric here, and watching Cathy's video, she got probably close to half a meter out of a shirt. She gets a lot of her shirts from Goodwill or secondhand. Here in Australia, they're called op shops. So St. Vincent de Paul or Goodwill or the Salvation Army or those kinds of places. And like the smart woman she obviously is, she looks for some of the largest size dress shirts, right? Nobody wants an extra small dress shirt if you're looking to cut it apart for fabric. So Cathy looks for the large, extra large, double and triple XL shirts in beautiful patterns and colors and designs. I am going to keep cutting this up. Maybe put some of this on fast forward. Speed it up a little so you don't have to watch me go through this really slowly. And we'll come back and chat a little more as I get closer to the end. To try to salvage a little bit of fabric out of this collar. The shirt itself isn't terribly worn, so there's not a lot of stains or anything like that in the collar, but there is the what is it, the interfacing or whatever it is that's inside here. I won't throw this out right away, but I don't think I'm going to spend the time and energy now to try and take all of this apart to see if I can salvage a 2-inch, let me grab a ruler, to see if I can salvage what is barely a 2-inch piece of fabric. So not trash quite yet, but I'm not going to put the time in to take that apart. So there's the first piece of fabric cut free from the shirt. There's a pocket here still, but that is a pretty large size piece. I'm gonna just grab a fat quarter that I have sitting here just slightly off camera, just to open it up and give a sense of what size of piece of fabric that is. So a little skinnier than a fat quarter, but it's probably ultimately maybe 3/4 of a fat quarter, but still a pretty nice sized piece of fabric. This one is just about 12 inches wide at the widest point, and then there's easily 12, 15 or 16 inches of fabric right here. Then we have the pocket plus this space up here. So this is the left front of the shirt. The right front of the shirt won't have that pocket, and that'll be an even more useful piece. Then we have the back. Look at that. That's at least a fat quarter and probably more. I just need to cut the yoke out. Cathy talks about how some shirts have some amazing fabric on the inside of the shirt, lining the collar, lining the yoke, and that sometimes, depending on the size of the shirt, it's actually worth buying and cutting up just to get that fabric that's inside the yoke. In this case, it's exactly the same. And I think, like the collar, I'm not going to take the time and effort. Well, maybe I will. Yeah, I think I will. I think if I cut those seams off, the yoke probably won't be that hard to separate into its component pieces. Unlike the collar, I think this might be a little bit quicker. So I think I'm just going to cut down these seams and see if this comes apart quickly and easily. I can feel myself cutting through. Oh no, there isn't. I thought for some reason that there was going to be some kind of a stabilizer or fusible interfacing or something in here, but it's just extra layers of fabric. So this is worth cutting up, I think. Just cutting as tightly as I can into this seam. And it's the seam allowance that I'm cutting through that makes it feel like there might be some interfacing or something in here, but there you go. Cut those pieces off. That is quite another substantial amount of fabric once you cut around the tag. Making a bit of a mess here, but we're cutting up a shirt. Of course we're going to make a bit of a mess. So that needs a little bit of trimming. There's still some of the seam allowances here and things that will come off, but another fairly substantial, I could easily get a 2-inch piece through this narrow section and probably a 2.5 or an even 3-inch piece of fabric here. Yeah, there's easily a 3-inch piece there, and yeah, a good 2, maybe 2.25-inch piece through this center section. The tag on this piece will interfere, but there's still 2 big chunks of fabric here, which are great. All right, what have we not done yet? Look at this back. This is still amazing to me. That's a huge amount of fabric. All right, so some of my trash off to the side. This is the right front of the shirt. Without the pocket, you can see that that's some substantial amounts of fabric there. And that just leaves the sleeves to dive into. So one of these, if you'll remember, here it is. This is the one that has the hole in the elbow. And this gave me a really good excuse to cut up the shirt because I didn't want to mend it. So as Cathy says, I'm going to cut around the seams and cut those off. And then I'll cut the sleeve apart by cutting down that center seam, cut off the cuffs, and see what we're left with. Leave a comment down below if you've ever done this, or if you've ever used this kind of fabric that's been upcycled or recycled in any of your quilt projects. If you've got any lessons learned or any experience to share with us, I'd love to hear from you. As I said earlier, I'm still not sure if I'm going to just incorporate this as I would regular fabric into a regular quilt project, or if I'm going to collect enough shirts and make an entire quilt out of leftover or recycled, upcycled shirt fabric. We'll have to see how it goes. I think I'll have to start paying visits to my local op shop, my local Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, Goodwill, any of those shops, just to see what's available. I also have no idea how expensive dress shirts will be at a thrift store. Are they really inexpensive? Are they expensive? I don't know. I think I'm gonna do the same thing with the cuffs. This is another nice amount, at least 2 inches, maybe even 2 1/4. In fact, I wonder if I can quickly just use my ruler to cut this a little straighter than with the scissors. This does feel like it has interfacing or something inside of it. And there's a double seam there, so let me cut through that. Yeah, there's the interfacing. Yep, it's another piece of fabric, so why not, right? Cut off the buttonhole. That's not bad. Not sure how easy this is to get off the interfacing. Don't think I'm going to bother with that. Wonder what a piece of really beautiful blue plaid already on interfacing could be used for, though. It's maybe the ultimate bits and pieces. Maybe I should just throw it away so I'm not too tempted, but we'll see. So what have we got here for the sleeve? So remembering that this one has the hole in the elbow, the other one won't. The other one will be a full piece of fabric. And that's pretty incredible, especially when you spread out these pleats. You get some nice sized pieces there. I'm gonna cut out this wrist part because of this doubled up fabric here. But after that, it's another pretty substantial piece of fabric. All right, my first shirt all cut up. I'm going to cut up the other 2 I have here, the blue plaid and the original beige, and I'll be back. Now that I've cut up 3 shirts, I have 3 tips to share with you as a result. Made some really beautiful progress on the beige and this blue. And my first tip is that sleeves matter. There's a real difference and a noticeable difference in the amount of fabric that you get from long sleeve shirts versus short sleeve. So if you're going to the thrift store, if you're raiding a loved one's closet, show a preference for the long sleeves because you'll get more fabric that way. My second point is that you might want to iron your shirts before you cut them up. I found with this blue one that it was quite wrinkled and it was a bit challenging to cut around the bottom edges, especially around the bottom of the back of the shirt, which was really quite wrinkled. And it would have been easier had it been ironed before I cut it up. And the third tip is to use your seam ripper to take off the buttons. Don't cut them off with your scissors. And let me show you why. I was impatient and I used the scissors to cut off the buttons right here on the edge of the shirt. This is where the button down collar joins the top left-hand side of the shirt. And I cut it off with the scissors rather than taking the time to use the seam ripper. And now I have a little hole right exactly where the button was. So use the seam ripper. Don't be impatient like I was. Don't use the scissors because you will end up with a hole. But all in all, this was a great experience. I'm thrilled with the amount of fabric that I have as a result of cutting up 3 men's dress shirts. So there you have it. Not a bad outcome from cutting up 3 dress shirts. A huge thanks to Cathy Martin at Cat Bird Quilts for the inspiration. And I'll follow up at some point and let you know what I end up doing with these bits and pieces. Let me know in the comments down below if you're inspired to recycle, upcycle, or reuse existing fabric from your home, from your family, turn those into quilts. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to make the most of your fabric bits and pieces.